Hello students, welcome to the EPG Pathshala. I am Ashok Goel from the Department of Physics and Astrophysics, University of Delhi. Today we are going to continue our discussion of small oscillations as we did in the previous two units from the paper Classical Mechanics. In this unit, you will be able, after going through the material, you will be able to understand the vibrations of a loaded string, and you will learn about the free, forced and damped oscillations. The problem of the motion of elastic string or a spring on which identical masses are placed at regular intervals is in fact a difficult problem. So, the problem is you have a string which is stretched and you have masses at regular intervals on that string, or you have a large number of masses which are attached by springs of equal length with each other, and the problem is to discuss the motion of this string. In the case of a string which is loaded, we will discuss the motion in the vertical direction, and for this case of a spring, we can discuss the motion in the horizontal or the linear direction. Now, this problem was attempted by Newton and was eventually solved by Johann Bernoulli. The solution gave rise to the principle of superposition, which is so well known today. In this unit, we will visit the problem and will indicate how a solution leading to free vibrations can be obtained. In the earlier units, we discussed how a system, specifically a chain of molecules, when displaced from the equilibrium, would oscillate freely. The general oscillations are in fact very complicated, but a great simplification we saw could be achieved by considering the motion in normal coordinates. In its normal mode, the system oscillates with one of its natural frequencies, which is called the resonant frequency. In order to obtain knowledge of the intermolecular forces, one would need to study the vibrations of the molecular chain, and this would require setting the chain to oscillatory motion. So, if you how do we set the chain to oscillatory motion? Then we have to apply some force, and this is done with the help of external forces. Now, if the natural frequency or the resonant frequency of the system lies in the acoustical range, that is, the frequency is in the acoustical range, then the system can be set into oscillation by sound waves falling on the system. In case the resonant frequencies of the molecule lie in the optical range, then the external driving force can be provided by shining light or laser beam onto the system. In addition, the system would also have dissipative forces, the frictional forces, which in some form or the other will always be present, and this would result in the damping of the motion. We consider vibrations of a loaded string. Consider an elastic string of length L on which are placed n identical masses at regular intervals with a spacing a between them. The two ends of the strings are fixed and the string is in equilibrium. The string is now pulled up by a small amount and let go. This will set the string into vibratory motion. So, consider the diagram here where, let us say, the kth mass is pulled up by an amount yk, k plus 1th mass is then pulled by an amount yk plus 1, and k minus 1th mass by an amount y of k minus 1 as shown. Now, let us concentrate or the mass m at the kth position, which is pulled by an amount yk. The two neighboring masses k minus 1th and k plus 1th are pulled, as I said before, by amounts yk minus 1 and yk plus 1. Let T be the tension in the string. The segment of the string between k and k minus 1th mass exerts a restoring force on the kth mass given by this force Fk is minus T sine theta. T is the tension in the string, theta is that angle which the string makes with the horizontal, and T is the tension, and negative sign C is a restoring force. So the restoring force is minus T yk minus 1 by A, because sine theta can be written in terms of this. This force on the kth mass due to the segment of the string between k and k minus 1th mass can be considered to have arisen from a potential energy function, which we write a uk k minus 1 of the string segment. So uk k minus 1 can be written is equal to half the tension T by A multiplied by yk minus 1 minus yk whole square. So if you take the derivative of this, then you can see that we obtain the right force. So thus the total potential energy of this string can now be written as U is equal to half tension in the string divided by A, sigma over all I is equal to 1 to n plus 1, yi minus 1 to minus yi whole square. Likewise, the kinetic energy T is the sum of kinetic energies of the individual masses. So T is equal to half m, sigma over I is equal to 1 to n, y dot square. Since the ends of the strings are fixed, y dot n plus 1 is equal to 0, and we can extend this sum from I is equal to 1 to n plus 1, and the Lagrangian of the system is then 1 half of sum over I from 1 to n plus 1 of the kinetic energy term, which is m y I dot square, minus the potential energy term, which is T by A, T is the tension, and yi minus 1 minus yi whole square. The Lagrangian equations are easy to obtain, and the Lagrangian equation for I is equal to k, for example, is m yk double dot minus T by A yk minus 1 minus 2 yk plus yk minus 1 is equal to 0. Notice that the terms containing yk arise from two terms corresponding to I is equal to k and I is equal to k plus 1 in the Lagrangian. Now, having obtained the Lagrangian equation of motion, let us try to solve them. So let us assume a solution which is of the form yk is ak e to the power I omega t. Substituting this in the equation, we get minus T by A ak minus 1 plus T by A minus m omega square into ak minus T by A ak minus 1 is equal to 0. Since the ends are kept fixed, that is a0 is equal to ak plus 1 is equal to 0, and k takes values 1, 2, 3, etc. We have a set of algebraic equations for k is equal to 1, 2, 3, etc. And these algebraic equations look like what is shown below in the equation 16.9. Now, for these equations to see, this is a set of, again, a linear algebraic equation, and a non-trivial solution exists provided the determinant of the coefficients of a1 to an vanishes. So you have a determinant shown in figure 16.10. For this determinant to vanish would mean that we have a non-trivial solution, where in this expression 16.10 we have put lambda is equal to twice T by A minus m omega square. Now, this characteristic equation 16.10, this could be easily solved if n were 1, 2, 3, 4, etc. for low values of n. For large values of n, the solution will be very difficult as an algebraic equation, a polynomial equation of degree n. So, we'll try to make some guesses. We will try a solution with extra parameter to see that all conditions of the problem are satisfied. We have seen in the earlier unit the amplitudes A1, A2, etc. can be expressed in terms of other amplitudes. So we'll use this to try a solution of the type AK is equal to A1 e to the power I k beta minus delta, where beta and delta are some parameters. We'll try to find the condition on betas and delta such that the boundary conditions are satisfied. So substituting this solution into the equation 16.8, we get equation shown in 16.12, and we have omega square is 2t by ma minus t by ma e to the power I beta plus e to the power minus I beta. So omega square is obtained as 4 times t by ma sine square of beta by 2. Now the characteristic equation is of order n, and we have n values of omega square. We may write these eigenfrequencies omega r as omega r is equal to twice under root t by ma sine beta r by 2 for r is equal to 1 to n. We of course still have to determine beta r's and the phases delta r's. For a given frequency omega r, we thus have the amplitude akr is equal to a1r exponential I k beta r minus delta r. The physically relevant real part must satisfy the boundary condition. That is, a0r is equal to 0 and a of n plus 1 r is equal to 0. So putting k is equal to 0 in the equation 1615, we obtain a0r is equal to 0, a1r cosine delta r is equal to 0, which means delta r is pi by 2 or an odd multiple of pi by 2. When k is equal to n plus 1 likewise, we obtain beta r, satisfying equation that n plus 1 beta r is equal to s pi, where s is an integral 1, 2, 3. Therefore, beta r is equal to s pi divided by n plus 1. So there are only n values of beta r. We can therefore write beta r is equal to r pi divided by n plus 1, where r goes 1, 2, 3 up to n, and akr then becomes akr is equal to a1r sine k r pi by n plus 1. The general solution now can be written as ykt is equal to sigma over r cr sine k rn divided by n plus 1 e to the power I omega rt, where CRs are amplitudes and the eigenfrequencies omega r's are given in equation 16.13. Earlier, the normal coordinates of the system can be defined as xi r is equal to cr e to the power I omega rt, so that yk is equal to sigma over r xi rt sine k rn by n plus 1. Now, this method looks quite involved, and in deriving this expression for the eigenfrequencies, we have followed the method given in the classical dynamics by Marion for the solution of the characteristic equation. For an alternative deviation, we can look at classical mechanics by S.N. Biswas. Let us talk about force and damped vibrations. In the presence of an external driving force, which is taken for simplicity to vary sinusoidally with time with a driving frequency omega, the system no longer oscillates with its natural frequency, but the system is forced to oscillate now with the frequency of the driving force. So, the system does not oscillate with this resonant or eigenfrequency. Now, if Fi is the generalized force corresponding to the coordinate eta I, then the generalized force Qi can be defined as Qi is equal to, for the normal coordinates, xi I is given by the generalized force Qi is equal to the Fi sum over j multiplied by the partial derivative of the coordinate eta I with respect to the normal coordinate xi of j. See, so we have the normal coordinates xi j and we have the coordinates which are measured from the equilibrium position. Those coordinates are etas. The generalized force represent generalized forces acting on the coordinates. Etas are represented by Fi. The generalized forces acting on the normal coordinates, which is defined as zetas, as i's, are Qi's, and that these Qi generalized forces acting on the normal mode coordinates can be expressed in terms of generalized forces Fi acting on the coordinates etas by this relation Qi is equal to sigma Fi d eta I by d xi z. The equation of motion in normal coordinates is then given by xi I double dot plus omega I square xi I is equal to Qi. So Qi plays the same role as the generalized force Fi plays with respect to the coordinate eta I. These equations are a set of n homogeneous second order differential equations which can be solved once the generalized force Qi's are specified. For the force Qi, we take the sinusoidal force Qi is equal to Qi0, which Qi0 is the amplitude, multiplied by cosine omega t plus delta I. And cosine omega t plus delta I is the phase. Yes. A complete solution of the differential equation in 16.24 consists of a general solution of the homogeneous equation plus a particular solution of the inhomogeneous equation. The general solution of the homogeneous equation are the free modes of the vibration with characteristic frequencies of the system. The particular solution of the equation with Qi given by the sinusoidal expression 16.25 can be written as, so the particular solution can be written as xi I is equal to ai cosine omega t plus delta I. Now substituting this, the ai should satisfy, the equation will be satisfied provided ai's are given by ai is equal to Qi0 divided by omega I square minus omega square, where omega I is the resonant or the eigenfrequencies and omega is the frequency of the force, driving force. And the complete solution is then given by the sum or the particular solution in the general solution. Xi I is equal to bi cosine omega I t plus alpha I plus Qi0 divided by omega I square minus omega square cosine omega t plus delta I. Now the general solution of the problem in terms of the coordinates eta I is equal to sum over j aij xi I is given by eta I is sum over j aij bj cosine omega j t plus alpha I plus sum over j aij qj0 cosine omega t plus delta I divided by the whole thing omega j square minus omega square. The vibration of each particle is the linear combination of the vibrations of normal modes. When the driving frequency omega equals one of the eigenfrequencies, the corresponding amplitude becomes infinite. This is the phenomena of resonance. In actual practice, there are always dissipative forces present in the system which do not allow the amplitude to go to infinity. We can explore the behavior of the solution near resonance by taking omega I equal to omega I plus a small quantity epsilon, where epsilon is small compared to omega I. The normal mode solution xi1 can now be written as xi1 is equal to b1 cosine omega t plus alpha 1 minus q10 by 2 epsilon omega 1 cosine of omega 1t plus epsilon t plus delta 1, which is a real part of b1 prime exponential I omega 1t plus c1 prime multiplied by exponential I omega 1t plus epsilon t. Therefore, xi1 is then the real part of beta 1 prime plus c1 prime e to the power I epsilon t e to the power I omega 1 t, where b1 prime is equal to b1 exponential I alpha 1 and c1 prime is equal to c1 exponential I delta 1 is equal to minus q10 by 2 epsilon omega 1 into exponential I delta 1. We can therefore finally write xi1 as c1 exponential I omega 1t. The amplitude c1 varies with time. C square is the mod square of b1 prime plus c1 prime exponential I epsilon t whole square, which becomes b1 square plus c1 square plus 2bc1 cosine of epsilon t plus delta 1 minus alpha 1, where c1 is equal to minus q10 by 2 epsilon omega 1. Thus, the amplitude varies with time periodically with frequency epsilon. C1 lies between mod of b1 minus c1 and is less than the mod of b1 plus c1. This phenomena is known as the phenomena of beats. I will now discuss what happens in the presence of dissipative force. If a dissipative force exists in the system, which is proportional to the velocity of the particle, then just as in the case of restoring force proportional to deviations from the equilibrium position can be derived from a potential energy function. So dissipative force can also be departure from deviations from the equilibrium position. So we define a dissipation function f is equal to half of sum over I and j fij eta I dot eta j dot. In physical situations where the kinetic and potential energy functions can be diagonalized by transformation to normal coordinates, it frequently happens that the dissipation function can also be diagonalized. We will consider this situation to write the equation of motion in normal coordinates as xi1 double dot plus fi xi I dot plus omega I square. Xi I is equal to 0, which is the equation of a damped harmonic oscillator and which has a solution of the type xi I is equal to ci exponential minus I omega I t, where omega I satisfy minus omega I square minus omega I fi plus omega I square is equal to 0, which can be solved for omega I. And what we find that the motion is not purely oscillatory. The imaginary part minus I fi by 2 gives the factor of exponential minus fit by 2, which results in the damping of the oscillation with time. Not only this, the frequency of the oscillation is also modified and is no longer the eigenfrequency in the absence of damping. The solution in the case of omega I much greater than fi by 2 can be written as xi I is equal to ci exponential minus fi by 2t cosine of omega I t plus delta. So students, let us summarize what we have learned. We learned that the eigenfrequencies of a loaded string are given by omega r is equal to twice under root of t by ma sine r pi divided by 2n plus 1, where t is the tension in the string, m are the masses which are attached at interval a in the string. Now in the presence of, so these are the eigenfrequencies of the loaded string. Now, if we apply a driving force, then in the presence of driving force, the normal coordinates oscillate with the frequency of the driving force. Now, if over and above this, the dissipative forces are also present, then if the dissipative force is proportional to the velocity of the particle, then the amplitude of the oscillations is damped. And eventually, if there is no driving force and there is only the dissipative force and the intermolecular forces or whatever forces are present in the system, the oscillation, if the system is set into oscillations, the oscillation will die out with time. Thank you.